and should be getting sacked. They should be shaking his hand and saying thanks for the memories. He hasn't been good enough.
Spurs are not good, but have a European trophy that enables Champions League. Arsenal are good and have won nothing again.
Arsenal are losing at a higher level. Spurs are winning at a lower level.
I just think that you're being really, really unfair and disrespectful to Spurs, and you're kind of talking at both sides of your mouth.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Whisper It Loudly, a special. We deliberately delayed this week's episode because we wanted to react to last night's Europa League final. I'm Jordan Jack Bryan. I'm joined by Hugh Wozencroft, Darren Lewis, and obviously this week, Troy Townsend's back on the pod. Obviously, surprise, surprise, shock. Troy's back in the house. We're going to be going over last night's final. Of course, a 1-0 win to Tottenham Hotspur. First trophy in nearly 18 years. First European trophy for even longer. We'll just dissect what this means for them. We'll get to United shortly as well. Hugh, of course, the United fan on our panel here. But I thought it would be best to start off with Troy. Let's give Troy his moment. It's Tottenham's time. It's been a long time in coming. The manager, Ange Postecoglu, said he always delivers a trophy in his second year, and he's a man of his words. He said what he said, and he stood on business. Before we get to the analysing of the game and what this means, Troy, as a fan of Tottenham Hotspur, just talk us through what it felt like and what it feels like knowing that you are a European champion of sorts this morning.
I'm hearing those low blows and digs. Yeah, you still got to get it.
They're not even low, but let's do it.
Let's do it. Listen, it's when you haven't won something for as long as what Spurs haven't. It's a great feeling. It's in keeping with the winners of trophies so far this season. Listen, you said we'll talk about the game afterwards, and there's not much to talk about the game because it wasn't the best. But no one remembers that. All they remember is the victors and the victory, and North London will be a very good place to be in on Sunday and Monday next week. Yeah. Look, he set his team up in a way that getting the first goal was all important, and it's what they did. When you're 16th and 17th, as the teams are, listen, it was never going to be great. I heard the commentators keep saying this is not a great spectacle. Well, what are you expecting from two teams who are devoid of confidence, who are as low in the league as they are?
No, but Troy, let me cut you. We'll get to the game itself. You're a fan. Just as a fan, talk to me. You've been the banter club for 20 years. Spursy is now in the dictionary, right?
Well, no, look, even the club tweeted Spursy last night, and it was magnificent.
So, they're still the banter club, but just so
they are.
They are.
We are being joined by a number of clubs now, by the way, as the banter club. So we are happy to accept it because we accept it with that trophy now, a magnificent European trophy that goes along with winning a final. It was everything that we wanted. The nerves were there, the expectation was there, the kind of final whistle relief was there. It was just everything that we wanted as a football club and as fans. And we have been through a lot of pain this season, week after week after week. So to finally win that was just glorious. It was just glorious. That's really as much as I can say at the moment.
No, sure. And Darren, I know you're a man that for much of your career covered Spurs. Again, we'll get to the game and we'll break it apart in a minute. But just as someone that I know knows quite a few people at Spurs, has had to write various articles about Spurs being Spursy, as a neutral in this particular fixture, watching that game, what were your feelings seeing Spurs finally show some armpits and lifting a trophy?
I'm delighted for Spurs because I don't think they are the banter club anymore. They've won a European trophy. They're into the Champions League. He's delivered what he promised. You're not the banter club anymore. I think there are other clubs that now they've got to take on that mantle. Man United at the moment are not in a good place, and it's going to be even harder work for them to come back. I see a lot of people this morning because we haven't mentioned the words Ange Postecoglu, but he's vindicated. And people can say what they like, but the purpose of football is winning. The objective of football is winning. And he's not only done that, but he's got a club that has been through 11 managers over 17 years, or interim managers, into the Champions League, the promised land. So no, A, they're not the banter club anymore. And B, I think as far as he is concerned, he's utterly vindicated. There are people right now who are saying, I'm so happy for Spurs, who are front and centre of criticising him. And he will be remembering all of those people during the dark moments now that he is the one who is on top. I'm so pleased for him.
Yeah, there were even pundits on TV last night that were kind of, being nice to him, and you said what you said and you delivered it. And I won't name names, but these are the same people, Darren, that were, I know, just weeks ago calling him out and saying all kinds of things. So a bit of hypocrisy there for sure. Hugh, you spoke at the start of the season about Spurs saying they needed to address their identity. They needed to work out what sort of club they wanted to be. They needed to really get it together before they talk about transfers and style of play. Who are Tottenham Hotspur? Remember you saying they need to identify who they are. By hook or by crook, they've managed to bring a trophy. I mean, it's not been a great season, but they have managed to get that monkey off their back. I know you're not a neutral in this particular situation here, but just as someone that's not a Spurs fan, what were your thoughts on what they achieved last night?
Very happy for Tottenham. Load of Spurs mates, including Troy. Delighted to see a club that hasn't won a trophy, like many others. Like the Palace, like the Newcastle earlier on this season. Great to see their fans get that jubilant moment. Absolutely. I guess they deserve it in terms of what they produced in the Europa League. It wasn't a stellar Europa League. As someone that covers Thursday nights for the last 5 years, the competition's changed. In another season, I think Man United and Spurs are probably quarter finalists in this competition. Obviously, no teams no longer drop down from the Champions League. Plus, the expanded Champions League means 4 very good teams that probably would have made semi-finals and finals in previous years in the Europa League and now in the Champions League phase. So, thankfully for Spurs and Manchester United, so I don't think Man United would have got near the final either. Things have fallen into place this season. I can't be revisionist. I hope this is a sign for Spurs fans about what the club should be. This is not a Champions League winning club. It's a club that every season they're in the Europa League. Like I said to you before, they should be challenging to win it. They should have many of the, you talk about the Sevillas regularly getting to semi-finals and finals in this competition because they treat it like it's their Everest. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Spurs when I say this isn't going to be a Premier League winning side. It's probably not going to be a Champions League winning side, but it certainly should be having nights like this way more often, and hopefully last night they got that addiction to winning trophies back again, because for me, FA Cups, League Cups, Europa Leagues, we should be having Spurs in the conversation for lifting that trophy. For me, every single season, I believe they would win the final because I believe with all of their team out, they wouldn't have had a bad season such as the season they had this year. They were destroyed by injuries, but their first choice 11 for me is better than Manchester United, has produced better football last season under Ange Postecoglu with a similar setup, similar players. We were raving about them at one stage. They've got past Man United in a final with injuries to key creative players, still managed to keep a clean sheet. Players not at 100% who've been coming back in recent weeks. Throw that all into the mix. Huge congratulations to Ange Postecoglu for getting over the line. I'm not going to change my view on where I stand on him. Just like I said about Erik ten Hag at the end of last year, you cannot base the future of your football club on one match. Ange should be getting sacked. He should be leaving the club. They should be shaking his hand and saying, thanks for the memories. He hasn't been good enough. And this is a good time to launch yourselves with new signings and a new manager.
Go on, Troy.
Sorry, I just wanted to come in just before Hugh there on the criticism of Ange and what you and both Darren said. I mean, the criticism is a criticism and it was deserved. Spurs have lost 21 league games this season, and those fans that go week in and week out deserve better and have wanted better. But I think it became quite clear that Ange focused the trophy. So actually he was going to complete the narrative that he had created for himself around that second season win. And he's pulled it off. he obviously has changed the philosophy. So remember when Ange first came in, this is how we play, mate, and all that stuff. Well, he's changed the philosophy to make Tottenham a much harder team to beat. A team that will now have a low block and make sure that defensively they are sound, whilst also having creativity as they go forward in regards to the pace of Johnson on one side, Song on another. And yeah, I agree they had missed their creativity last night, but actually I didn't think it mattered last night. They were set up in a way that once they went ahead, they were going to stay ahead. So it's very important to acknowledge that as well, I would say.
And Darren, on that point of Ange Postecoglu at the start of the season saying that he's not changing the way he plays football, I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I was of the mindset that a manager should have his way of playing, flexibility to a degree, but this is how he plays, live and die by it. But he's proven that actually by changing the way he plays, because what he did last night is night and day to what his philosophy was, but it did prove fruitful. And to be fair to you, you've been saying from the get-go, he has to change. And we'll get to Amorim in a minute, who also won't change. But I want to just give him his flowers because he did say that he would deliver a trophy. I think the quote that he gave to, I think it was Emma Saunders for Sky, where he said, I will deliver a trophy my second season. I think people misunderstood what he was saying. I think people thought he was saying it as a prediction, when really I think he was just saying it as a fact. If you listen to actually what he said, he wasn't saying it like, I'm going to win this season. I think what he was saying was, well, just factually, I always win in my second season. End of. And I think people have misunderstood what he would. But anyway, but just kind of give him a little bit more of his flowers because he's been battered. He has been battered this year, Darren. But a good coach can pivot. And he pivoted and he's got the riches of a Europa League trophy on his cabinet now.
Yeah, it does. I mean, listen, I'd have forgiven him for doing the press conference, smoking a cigar. Don't smoke, guys. And wearing a fur coat, because I think as far as he's concerned, he's answered all of his critics. Now, some people might say, well, he's lost 21 games, and that would be true, you know, as Troy was saying. But I think some of those games he was prepared to sacrifice in pursuit of the Europa League. It got to that stage where he was all in on the Europa League. When you talk about his tactics, you're right. He put on Danso to nullify the threat of Harry Maguire. He knew that late in games, Manchester United go for their press glass in case of emergency, break glass in case of emergency, and stick him up front. So Danso snuffed him out. And there's all of this criticism of him not being tactically aware. So it's really worth me doing this. He's won 3 trophies with Brisbane Roar in the A-League. He's got Australia to the World Cup. He's won the Asian Cup with Australia. He's won the J-League with Yokohama. He's won 5 trophies in 2 seasons with Celtic. This is a man with a body of work who needs respect put on his name. He's the first Australian to win, to manage in the Europa League final, and obviously to win it as well. There is time for him to take learnings from this season. He's second in the Premier League, and going to next season, he's had horrendous injuries. The people who want to keep criticising him won't listen to any of that. But the fact is that he's had a bad hand. He's made the most of it. He's got his reward. I say more power to him.
What's the bad hand?
He has got every right now. And to be fair, actually, he was very gracious in victory after the match. But you could forgive him for really feeling a sense of satisfaction, given that he's answered back in the best way.
What's the bad hand?
He's had a lot of injuries this season. There was a stage where he had no centre halves, he had no goalkeeper. Son is clearly not the player that he used to be. And all of these things play into the fact that they're going to have to deepen the squad in the summer. He lost Solanke for a time as well.
Can I just push back?
Maddison wasn't available for the final.
Can I push back? Sorry, on the injury thing, because are not a big portion of those injuries down to his management.
You could say that. And again, he would wear that as well. But
I think we've got to be very careful about the whole. And my club, Arsenal, they're doing the same thing. Oh, we've had lots of injuries this season. A large chunk of those injuries are his fault.
No, but that goes back to what I was saying about
that's not bad luck. Needing
to take learnings from this season, because obviously he wants to play a high octane style of football. But if you do that, it's going to lead to the kind of injuries that he has had. So he's going to have to find now, going into next season, going into pre-season, a balance, a way of working that is going to enable him to play that style of football. But he's somebody who's got a belief in what he wants to do and the way that he wants to do it. And when it delivers trophies, it vindicates you. People can rail at the clouds from the outside all they like, but that is just them being bitter because they've been embarrassed. But as far as he is concerned, he's got a European trophy, Tottenham's first since 1984, to answer with. And I'll tell you one thing about Sevilla. Only Sevilla have won more Europa Leagues, UEFA Cups, call it what you will. So now he's in good company, very good company with Tottenham.
Troy, as the Spurs fan on the chat here, what do you say in response to what Hugh was saying regarding his status as the manager? Because look, the morning after the night before, every Spurs fan is buzzing, and rightfully so, and deservedly so. But the wider picture for me is this Ten Hag 2.0?
I would hope not. I think massively it's an emotional night last night and this morning, and I think it would edge people's thought process. And when I say people, it doesn't matter what we say on here. It'll be people in the boardroom. It'll be people that are significantly responsible for whether they sack a manager or not, you know. I think he's bought some time in regards to questions being asked, evaluation being made. I think he potentially will be pressed on, well, what can we do differently so we don't have that embarrassing league season as we've had? Because remember, it's only the relegated clubs that are holding Spurs up at the moment. But also he's shown them that he can adapt his style. And that's what everyone was talking about before. We'll remember the famous 9 men against Chelsea game. And in that 9 men against Chelsea, he still went for his principles. You'll let Hugh come in a minute. As a Spurs fan, listen, I don't go week in, week out, but Spurs fans have been very critical for a very long time because 21 defeats is over half the games. And for season ticket holders, that is difficult to take. And yes, he did kind of put the league to the back burner with only a few games to go. It wasn't always like that, and concentrated on this Europa League. But I think it will be a very difficult conversation. It'll be a very difficult conversation now to have.
Troy?
Do I trust him?
But Jordan, just before you come in, right? I've said many times on this pod, a good manager can post bad numbers. He's only lost 3 more games than Ruben Amorim. Are we saying Ruben Amorim's a bad manager? No, we're not. Ruben Amorim has a fantastic reputation. He's had an awful season, but we're not saying that these guys are bad managers. He has just won a European
I didn't say
trophy.
anybody was a bad manager or a good manager. I'm asking the question. 21 defeats, Darren, is disgraceful.
Yes.
That's
disgraceful,
right?
Yeah, but you can say that. But the fact
what I'm
is
asking
that
Troy
he's put it to
so
one side and said, I'm going to win a European trophy. Do you know how many clubs have spent huge amounts of money that have nothing to show for it this season?
So what you're saying is it's okay to do 21 defeats if you can guarantee a European trophy. That's not acceptable to me. What I'm asking Troy is, as a Spurs fan, I'm asking Troy. Hang on.
No, because you're saying it's not acceptable to you, and it is acceptable to Spurs fans who are celebrating right now.
Hang on. I'm asking the Spurs fan, Troy, does he trust this manager next season to do well in the league? And if so, would he mind if it brings European success? I'm asking the Spurs fan that. Well, 21 defeats is disgraceful.
Spurs are not going to win the Champions League, put it that way. But I think with the new Champions League, the way that it is, and depending on how much money any Spurs manager is given in the summer to dramatically change that squad and to make them competitive on 2 fronts, 3 fronts, whatever it may be, with the Carabao Cup and whatever else, because I think success breeds success. And once you win one, you get that taste and feeling and want to win more. I think he'll stay, and he might make the decision. I think that now the hierarchy at Spurs will want to keep him, but they'll want certain kind of acknowledgements from him. Like you said, Ten Hag 2.0. They'll want certain kind of acknowledgements from him that the season that they've just had in the league will not be the season that they have in the league the following season. But there needs to be significant upgrades to that because obviously with the Champions League involved now and with more games in the Champions League, there'll need to be upgrades in that Spurs squad for sure.
Go on, Hugh.
Well, I just sorry to say it, Troy, but Troy said he's shown he can play a different way. He hasn't. Spurs were terrible. Football-wise, Spurs were terrible last night. Terrible. They won the game.
Still playing a different way, though, Hugh. He's still playing a different way, Hugh.
But when you're saying he's shown it,
but
when you're saying he's shown it, how's he shown it? Because Premier League, last 11 games, he's lost 9, he's drawn 1, he's won 1 against Southampton.
Because he's changed his philosophy. He's changed his philosophy and approach.
He's changed it, and he's losing every week.
Remember what I've also said is that he concentrated on the Europa League. He's concentrated on the Europa League.
But this is why I'm saying you can't judge it on one game. Oh, I watch the Europa League games. You watch the Europa League games. You know, the quality of the sides that Spurs are playing, it doesn't prove anything about the qualities of the match. No disrespect, but it just doesn't show anything about the quality. So
let me present this to you. Let me present this to you. In the FA Cup, Premier League teams will play lower league teams along their way to glory. Yes? But no one ever questions the lower league teams that they play at that point. All they remember is that they won the trophy and have Crystal Palace now, as we talk this season, have won the trophy and have got themselves a significant upgrade because they will be playing Europa League football next season. It's quite basic. It doesn't matter who you play in the competition, you've got to beat them. Certain teams have played certain weakened teams in European competition and not beaten them. What he has proved is that over the last few rounds, he's adapted his style to make Spurs winners. And ultimately, people will not remember that cup final. It's not going to be one that's going to be easy on the eye. But what they will remember is that in 2025, Tottenham Hotspurs are Europa League winners that enables them to get into the Champions League the following season. We can debate it as much as we want. No, it wasn't a great game. And Jordan, you said we'll talk about the game later. But ultimately, Spurs won the fixture with 2 bad sides, and they won it.
All right, we'll have to get to United in a second. But just my last thing, I'll stick with you, Troy, on this one. I thought of Harry Kane last night, right? I thought of Harry Kane, and I wondered to myself, what do you think he'd be thinking? Do you think he values a Bundesliga title with Bayern Munich, or would you think he would prefer the Europa League title with Spurs?
I mean, it's a frivolous question. Listen, he's a winner. He's won his first title. He also won the Player of the Season last night, which he posted, by the way, last night. Listen, I think he'll be happy for the football club. I think he's enjoying where he's playing his football right now and the status of where he's playing his football. I don't think there should ever be a comparison. During Harry's time, they reached finals. They didn't win. He's gone to Bayern Munich. He's won the top goal scorer for 2 seasons on the trot. And he's won the league. The thing they'll be disappointed in is obviously the Champions League and not going any further than that. So whilst I'm sure he'll be on the phone to a lot of those ex-teammates, congratulating them as they were for him, congratulating him.
Can I say two things? The first thing is just a nod back to what you were saying. Finals are for winning. Nobody cares how you play in a final. The finals are for getting over the line. Nobody remembers the League Two player final when Man City beat Shrewsbury. Now that Man City are plundering trophies at the elite level now, nobody really remembers the actual team and style of that. To be fair, AC Milan was a classic so I probably shouldn't use that example. But there are a number of good examples of top teams playing badly in finals, but winning them, because finals are about getting over the line. I think as far as your Kane question is concerned, I think the side that he plays with now is better than the side that he was with at Spurs. So there might be the emotional pull of obviously coming from Chingford and would have wanted the club within a couple of miles of where he grew up, wanting to win things with them. But I don't think he's unhappy where he is at the moment. And after Hugh answers, I want to ask a more general question about the fact that what does Tottenham's win mean for Arsenal? Because should Arsenal fans have a right to feel away now?
No, we're not. And we haven't got time for that today anyway.
No, we do have time.
No, we haven't. We haven't got to United yet. We're half an hour in.
Yeah, I know, but it's an important question.
We'll do that next week, Darren.
Hugh, answer the question. Answer it. Go on, Hugh.
I don't think it means anything for Arsenal other than some
Don't
salty
care.
stuff between.
This is not an
between
Arsenal
fan
pod
bases.
today. I'm sorry. This is
No,
not
And that is
Arsenal
a
wouldn't be
frivolous
laughing
question.
at Spurs if
That is a
Arsenal
frivolous
was-
question,
if Spurs
Darren.
had lost.
No, let me tell you,
Don't run
Darren, as
away
an
from
Arsenal
that.
fan, no one cares.
I
Nobody
don't know.
cares.
I don't know.
But let's move.
I
Let's
don't know.
move
But
You
to
on
answer your
WhatsApp
question,
group,
it doesn't
Jordan,
mean
you
anything
cared a lot.
for Arsenal. It doesn't mean anything for Arsenal.
We got our
Yeah,
own
yeah.
issues to sort out. Tottenham is not really on our radar.
And what does it mean for Man United?
That they lost the game.
Yeah.
No, and listen, this is the point I think I wanted to make more widely, and this is why I was saying what I said about Postecoglu's future. Everything that I felt about Manchester United before the game remains true this morning. Everything I felt about Spurs before the game remains true this morning. And this was the point I was trying to make about Ange changing the football. You cannot base the future of your football club around one 90-minute game. You can't. And Troy, said exactly what he said, and he's right. Spurs did what they did to get over the line. They're not going to play like that next season. That's not their football. That's not how Ange wants to play on a weekly basis. So all you can infer from it is he's good enough to get them over the line in the final because he's proven it. That's the biggest thing that you can infer from last night. Is he good enough to take them on leaps and bounds in the future in the Premier League, Champions? We haven't seen that. So for me, I'd be changing. Ruben Amorim, you said earlier, is he under similar pressure to Ange? Yeah. The only difference is he hasn't had a summer transfer window, a summer pre-season. But the same thing remains true about Amorim before the game for me. And I said this before the game, and I tweeted it yesterday because I said I'm not doing revisionism or hindsight. Same thing I did with Southgate before the finals. I went on my socials. I said, this is how things stand, and they're not going to change for me. Amorim's got 10 games. He's got 10 games. This is by far one of the worst bits of management, coaching, whatever you want to call it. Last night in the 90 minutes, but also since he's come to the club. My man's being compared to Paul Jules Derby County, the worst team in the history of Premier League football. He has a worse points per game ratio. The guy's job is at risk in a big way. We're not talking about, Man United need to give a manager time to. There's a line. There's a minimum standard. Man United are way below it. So the idea that you get loads of time, you need to be at least on the minimum standard to be getting more time, and he's way below it. Way below it. So let's not pretend. Last night he was awful. His management was awful. Substitutions were awful. Coaching was awful. Formation that he stuck to so rigidly, absolutely awful. For me, winning the Europa League, it wasn't a big deal to me. The Europa League's not a big deal to me as a Manchester United fan. I've said it. Listen,
You say that?
Troy. I know people. It doesn't mean anything to me.
The goal at the end of it.
No.
But
But
goal
listen,
at the end of it.
So I understand what you're saying. I'm talking about winning the trophy. Getting to the Champions League was more important to me than winning the trophy. Sad to say, but it's modern football. Without the carrot of getting to the Champions League, I don't really care what happens last night at all. But there's a little bit of interest because it could have got you into the Champions League. But Man United don't deserve to be in the Champions League. I'm not hurt that they lost the game either. They got what they deserved. The Glazers got what they deserved. Ratcliffe got what he deserved. Amorim got what he deserved. The players got what they deserved. They don't deserve to be going to the Champions League. They don't deserve to win that game. So I'm not disappointed. What it means for the club more widely, again, same thing that stood before the game still stands now. All the issues that Man United had before that game still stand today. And winning the trophy wouldn't have made anything different. All this talk around they would have signed players and this, that. Man United are skin, and Man United are so bad that any top player worth their salt should be staying a million miles away from them. And that was whether they won that game or not. They are one of the worst football teams we have ever seen in this country. If Amorim was playing this football for the whole campaign, they would have been in the bottom three. If Amorim was in charge for the whole campaign, Man United haven't got to 40 points. The 40 points, managers always say, you need 40 points to stay up. One game left, Man United haven't even got to 40 points. They're lucky the three teams that came up were so bad.
Darren, let me come to you now because it's a harsh question to ask, but picking up of what Hugh's saying there, if you are the Man United hierarchy, you know that Amorim needs players in. I mean, they're skint, as Hugh said. They've got no money anyway. but now there's no Champions League money. They're in a big, big problem. Let's be brutal. Would you, based on what you've seen in 6 months from Amorim, would you try and find that, I don't know, 100 mil, 150 mil to back him and give it to him to try and better this team? Or would you be thinking, we've made a mistake here? And rather than give this guy 100 mil to spend, and then as Hugh infers, 10 games in, maybe sack him, let's just do it now. Let's just do it now and not do the Ten Hag thing again. What would you do if you were the hierarchy?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions in that analysis, that including the view that you've got to spend 150 million, all these fortunes to be able to put together a side capable of moving back up the table and improving things. I think it's important to remember a couple of things. Amorim didn't want to go to Manchester United mid-season because he was worried that he wouldn't be able to do anything with the squad that they've got. And they said, you come now or you don't come at all, basically. And so he took the job. So if they sack him, then it's on their toes as well, because they gave him a job he didn't want at that point. He wanted a summer to bring in his own players. And so, yes, they're in a difficult period at the moment. And yeah, you could put at him that even though they weren't his players, he should have played in a way that suited the team. I mean, Van Nistelrooy won 3 out of 4 games with Man United, let alone Amorim. But I just think that Man United cannot keep sacking managers. Eventually, you have to stop with one manager and keep going and go through the difficult things to get to the good periods, if you like.
Do you think he's the right guy?
With him. Do I? I wouldn't sack him.
Do you think Do you think he's the right guy?
Well, I wouldn't sack him. So yes, I think at the moment. Yeah,
okay. That's fine.
But you're framing the question in a really
no. The reason why I'm framing it in that way is because
you're
saying
way.
Your
because
point,
it's not a question of whether I think he's the right guy.
Hang on. Your point all season, Darren, has been you've got to give managers time.
Yes,
and in theory, I agree with that. But if the guy you've got, you feel we made a mistake here, forget giving time. Pull the trigger. And I'm asking you if you think he's the right guy.
I see what you're saying.
Give him time.
I see what you're saying. I felt he was the right man when I approached him last season, then I would stay with him now.
Even what you've seen 6 months. Even what you've seen for 6 months.
Well, like I say, the squad is poor at Man United. I don't think it's the worst squad that we've ever seen in the Premier League and etc. etc. There's a lot of hyperbole in that. I think that
Darren, if he came in 5 games earlier, they could be relegated. If he came in 5 games earlier.
I think it's a collection of players that are a Frankenstein's monster of different recruitment systems and different managers. And I think as far as Amorim's concerned, they will need root and branch surgery to rip it up. They need to be ruthless with certain players, pay off other players, and rebuild that squad in his image. And then they've got to bet on him. They cannot afford to get rid of him because that's only going to end in tears. I think as far as Spurs are concerned, they're in a much better position. Their squad is better for all the reasons I felt they would win the match. And again, this is another thing I disagree with Hugh on, because I do think that you can. I think last night's Europa League final was era-defining for both clubs, because it's a real chance now for Spurs to have a go, which is what Postecoglu was saying after the match. Go out and
have a go at what? Have a go at what?
Quality.
Have a go at what?
Have a go at rebuilding. Right, you go.
No. What's having a go for Tottenham? What's having a go? Tottenham are in the top 4 net spend in the Premier League over the last 5 years. They're ahead of Arsenal. So they've been having a go, my friend. They've been having a go. They've been spending money. Not well, but they've been spending it. So what is having a go now?
And now they have a trophy to now that as well, which now puts them in the higher echelons of money coming into the club because they've made Champions League football. Whatever you think about that, whatever you think about that,
Troy is right.
They've now the expectation,
and it's delivered silverware. You're saying that they're ahead of Arsenal. Arsenal's objective has been to win a title and they haven't managed to achieve it. Tottenham's objective was to win a trophy and to get into the Champions League. They've achieved it. So now they can have a go. And what I mean by that is bringing in quality, not young players that are going to get better in 4 or 5 years' time, but quality in the positions where they can have real depth. Like, for example, Aston Villa have, which enables them to be in the mix for trophies and for Champions League football, like Newcastle have as well, which enables them to win a Carabao Cup and to be confident of finishing in the top 5. That's what Spurs have to do now.
Troy, go on, Troy. Go on. You go.
I was going to say, I cannot believe we're disrespecting the winning of a trophy that enables you to play at the top table where everyone wants to achieve.
I don't think we're disrespecting it, Troy. I think we're asking.
I personally do.
Who's disrespecting it?
We're asking.
You are.
No, we're not.
No. I've praised Tottenham for last night and the win. They were the worthy winners. Congratulations. What I'm asking though is, what does this mean going forward? And I don't always subscribe to the idea that if you win something, that follows, more trophies follow.
No one said that.
Spurs have been in a better position as a club than they are right now and gone backwards.
Yeah, so but no one said it guarantees trophies. No one said, but it puts you back into that top echelon of European football. Full stop. It puts you back into that echelon and then enables you to think big again. Now, Spurs, they got there and then didn't back the manager. So this is why it's important to. So this is why it's important. So this is the big questions of the summer. Are you going to back the manager and enable him to improve on 17th and enable him to compete in cups, including Europe?
Troy, wasn't that same question asked when Pochettino got them top 3, top 2?
Yes, 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
But it's the same guy in charge. So what's different now to then?
Well, that's what we'll see in the summer.
Why would he back the manager now when he didn't back them then? And he had Harry Kane then. He had a prime song then. He had
Stop. Then they were a competitive football club, not just in the Champions League. They were a competitive football club in the league. Yeah? And he didn't back the manager. I agree with that. Now they've got to get themselves back up the table whilst also enjoying time in the Champions League. So Daniel Levy has had many big tests over his period of time, most of which he has fouled on. But you cannot continue to have a go at the guy until we know what the next season, what the summer looks like. And if we see Spurs, let's say, sacking Postecoglu, I don't think they would have a mind on who they want as the next manager at the moment. There's names being floated about, but even for those names who have done very well with their football clubs this year, Tottenham Hotspur is a different beast. As Man United is a different beast.
Let's go back to United because we've done Spurs, but I'll stick with you, Troy. Similar question that I asked Darren. Would you back this manager based on what you've seen so far? Would you give him the 100 mil? Because with my club Arsenal, when we were in the mud, we had to pay off Aubameyang. We had to pay off.
Keep bringing Arsenal back into this conversation.
No, because I'm comparing.
He says he doesn't want to talk about Arsenal.
Can I finish my point? My point was going to be Darren, you mentioned paying off Man United players. What I'm saying is that that's what Arsenal did, but Arsenal financially could do that. United, as you said, are skint. And now with no European football money coming in, let alone... So how are they going to pay players off to revamp this squad? Never mind bring players in. So what I'm asking is, would you find that money and give it to Amorim? Or would you just say, you know what, you're not the guy, we're going to start again?
I appreciate everything that Darren said about Amorim, but I think he is on thin ice. And I'm not sure that he makes it into next season. Listen, even his press conference, both managers' press conferences of late, but his have been quite glaring in, his approach to the football, his approach to the football club. And last night he said, I will not quit. If they want to sack me, they sack me. For me, straight after a final, that's a defeatist attitude. I'm looking for him to say, look, we're disappointed tonight, but next season we will be better. But I don't even think he believes that he can improve on what was witnessed last night and what has been witnessed over the last, over this season.
I agree.
For a club of Man United and Spurs, remember, I'm putting both in the same box, enormity, to finish where they have finished is you can't accept that. And so an evaluation, remember, Jim Radcliffe at the moment is sacking anybody in sight at Manchester United to save money. So you can't accept that and expect that without the financial backing of the Champions League, that you can give Amorim significant money for the players that he may want. And remember, those players are now going into a club that will not be playing in Europe next season. So why would they go? So we keep saying Man United going out and getting players. Why would the players come to Manchester United now?
Hugh, I take Darren's point to a degree about, the constant cycle and churn of managers and starting again. But let's look at the ownership now, because they're having a mare. They're having an absolute, they're having a stinker. And I started the pod by asking Troy to talk as a fan about what it meant last night to him as a Tottenham fan. You as a fan, how does it feel to know that you've got an ownership now, or a part ownership, that have come in and have taken your club even further backwards than they were when they came in? How does it feel for you? Because I know when Arsenal were in the mud, it feels horrible. You don't want to watch your team. There's no hope. How does it feel to you at the moment?
Similar to what it's been to it. Again, nothing's changed because of last night. I'll be honest, in terms of the money, people talk about it being worth 100 million for Man United and getting to the Champions League last night and all that. I didn't want that money to go to Man United. They don't deserve it. The Glazers don't deserve it. That money goes, people are like talking about signings and this and that. That money goes to pay off interest payments on a massive debt that the Glazers put on the club. That money goes to dividend payments. Okay, they haven't taken any for a few years, but eventually they will. They're leeches essentially running the football club. So I didn't want that money to go to their pocket. This idea that you're going to be buying this player and that player because you win last night. Man United have too many debts to pay off. They've been very clear about the financial hole that they're in. Okay, it might help you out the financial hole a little bit faster, but they don't deserve it. They've got the money to pay off that debt. They're multi-billionaires. They still leave Manchester United to pay the debt off on their behalf, despite the fact that they will turn a £125 million investment on their part into multi-billions. They'll still leave Man United with that debt on their heads. And until that debt goes, the payments are going to go up on that debt. Man United will be in this position. It will weigh them down. That's just a reality. In terms of pressure for Ineos don't own the club. Ratcliffe gets a lot of criticism, the decisions he's made and trying to cut costs, and he's now the face, if you like, of the boardroom at Manchester United, but he doesn't own the football club. So even for me, there's a part of like, well, ultimately they're not very good. None of them are very good. I don't see the Ineos in a different boat to what I put the Glazers in. They're inept. The leadership's inept at Man United. It has been for a long, long time. The money, the revenue of that football club, any team worth their salt produces more than what Man United have produced over the last 5 or 6 years. When you're looking at teams like Brentford and Brighton, who haven't been top flight clubs for the majority of their history, and you're looking for them in terms of inspiration as to how to run a football club, where Man United are.
Hugh, if they sacked Amorim, who would you, as a fan, want to have in charge?
Listen, I was with my load of Man United friends last night. We were watching the game. We were like, Ten Hag doesn't lose this game. We were like, David Moyes doesn't lose this game. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't lose this game. So it doesn't really matter about replacements. The person who's in the job right now, as I said earlier, is way, way, way below the minimum standard. And the only saving grace he's got,
I suppose I'm just asking.
Well, pick a manager, innit? That's the point I'm making. Pick a manager.
Yeah,
who wouldn't do a better job? That's probably the question you should be asking.
All right, who wouldn't do a better job?
Well, I don't know. Go to non-league, I guess.
Oh wow!
So you don't have an idea of who you would like to have if he were to go?
Say again.
You don't have an idea of who you would like to have if he were to go?
No, there's no picture. I mean, listen, I could start listing off managers and I don't know if you want me to do that. It's not very interesting for the listeners. If you want me to just reel off managers.
I'm just thinking 2 or 3 that you think he'd be.
No, listen, it's not about the particular names. I've said it before and I'll say it again. what is conducive to success at the top end of the Premier League, we're seeing it on a consistent basis. Can you dominate possession? Can you keep clean sheets? Can you create multiple clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities in a game? If your coaching cannot produce that, you will not finish in the top end of the Premier League. This manager's formation and tactics are not conducive to us keeping good quality possession of the football. And until Man United do that, they aren't going to win a lot of games in the Premier League. So the tactics he has to change. And that for me was the big takeaway from last night. It was not losing the game, missing out on the Champions League. The concerns over the managerial position grew and grew and grew. The second half, it was clear at half-time his tactics weren't working at half-time. Again, not to be revisionist, go back to my Twitter last night, half-time. I called for 4 substitutions at the break. But this man didn't make a substitution until 70 minutes. He brought on in the 89th minute. In the 89th minute, he played Garnacho for what, 20 minutes? Brought him on 70. Yeah, 70. Like, what are you doing? You're not trying to... It was Southgate-ish. It reminded everyone of Gareth Southgate's inability to change a football game. Wow. A key final. That's what we saw from Ruben Amorim last night. Screaming. What is this guy waiting for? Screaming at the TV like we were in Euro 2020 final. What is this guy waiting for? It was alarm bells when it comes to Ruben Amorim's management last night. And by the way, all this Man United don't have good enough players. Nonsense. Good enough to win that game last night. More than good enough.
Hugh, you're showing a passion that you deny that you have for this Man United team. You're clearly invested and clearly want the club to do better, but have a lack of faith in the manager. Just come out with it. You know, that last night was a massively important game. As much as it was for Spurs,
not as
for
much
Manchester United.
Spurs, no, absolutely not. Bruv, we won trophies the last 2 seasons. You haven't won one for 17 years.
Oh, you've tried to brug me off now. You've tried to brug me off. I mean, let's be serious. It was a massively important game.
It is, but not in the context of the game, of the trophy.
Financially,
I said that before. Not in the context of the trophy.
The Arsenal fan has said he's not sure.
I think,
but the context of the trophy elevates you to another trophy, which you have no expectation to be in that competition. So your only vision was to win last night. It's your only vision was to win last night, to get yourself
here's my
into
thing.
that
my
level.
point is, I'm not disappointed of losing a final. You can lose a final.
But your passion tells me different.
My disappointment comes from how we lost the final. Listen, if Man United played well and lost the final, you hold your hands up. Man United were dreadful last night. Absolutely dreadful, devoid of any ideas whatsoever, hoping on a wing and a prayer that Harry Maguire could score them a winner at the end of the game. This is Man United. This is Manchester United.
Romero had him wrapped around.
Bro, listen. Manchester United could barely, without a Spurs mistake, Man United weren't really going to score. Okay, they had a couple of half chances, but people are talking about possession. People are giving me stats around 17 shots in possession. We all watched the game. Spurs were comfortable. Spurs were not. Man United weren't asking questions where Spurs were like, how are we going to deal with this? Come on, let's be real now. That was the alarm bells. I don't care about losing the trophy, but we've brought in a manager who's meant to change this football club. And I'm telling you now, if he won last night, he would have had until Christmas to sort this team out. Now he's got 10 games.
I still can't forget the podcast we did at the start of the season where we were in the studio. Darren, you was away, and we clipped it. Hugh said, this season, top 6 would be a great season for Manchester United. And Troy looked at Hugh, Darren, and the look on Troy's face of disgust was just like, what are you talking about? And I agree with you. I was like, if they get top 6, that's a good season. And that was then.
I think you're missing the point. And, you know, I hear this all the time. This is Manchester United. And for your expectation to be top 6, remember, it was a different manager at the time. For your expectation to be top 6, Man
United weren't good last year. Man United were crap last summer.
But as you stated, we won a trophy. As you stated.
But that doesn't mean they're good. That doesn't mean are you good, Troy?
All
Are
right,
you?
well,
Are Tottenham good? Hang on. Are Spurs good?
Are Arsenal good? Are Arsenal good?
No. Forget
Are Arsenal good? So we can ask that question all
Yeah,
around.
Arsenal
yes,
are good.
we are. Yes, we
And
are.
Spurs
You're good.
Are Spurs
You're good.
Are Spurs good? Are Spurs good?
Okay, all right, let me answer it. Spurs are not good. Spurs are not good. Let me answer it. Spurs are not good in that context, but have a European trophy that enables Champions League. Arsenal are good and have won nothing again, have fouled again in the league, have 14 draws, are how many points behind a Liverpool team that gave up on the league 3 weeks ago?
Mercy.
So
Mercy,
you're
Troy,
talking...
Mercy.
No, but you're talking about...
Troy.
These are all questions that are I don't know, they're not the best questions.
Troy, and Arsenal are Anthony Joshua losing a heavyweight undisputed fight to Tyson Fury. Tottenham have won at amateur level. They've won a European at amateur level.
Jordan,
there's levels here.
So if you're, it's true.
Jordan,
Troy, we're talking about the bigger picture. Troy, hold on, Jordan. Hold on, Jordan.
So what is the bigger picture? Spurs compete next season, and I've already told you about Tottenham's season. I've been honest as I can. But next season, Tottenham compete in the same European competition as this high-flying Arsenal team that can't win anything. That's what I've just said to you.
But Troy, hang on, Troy. We can then judge. We're in the same competition.
But you spoke about 2019 and Spurs got in the Champions League final. You keep saying
because we were
discussing where they are.
It's the bigger picture.
The bigger picture.
You know what?
Hang on. I'm hosting today, right? Hang on. Troy is basically saying that trophy means you're good.
No, don't speak for me. Don't speak for me.
That's what you said.
Don't speak for me. All I'm saying to you is that you're trying to devalue.
You brought up Arsenal.
You brought up Arsenal.
No, you said
you're trying to devalue.
Arsenal.
You're trying to devalue what Spurs achieved last night. You're trying to devalue it.
No, I'm not.
What did you just say about amateur football?
Let's start. This started from me saying that Manchester United last season, before predictions, they were crap then. You said, but they won a trophy. I then said, winning a trophy, especially a League Cup, or an FA Cup, doesn't mean you're good. It means you had a good run.
It means you're good in that competition.
Let me make this point.
Go on, Darren.
You know, Arsenal right now, and I'm not saying this to be disrespectful, but in the context of what you're saying, they're like name me a powerful car, any powerful car. You guys are car enthusiasts.
Porsche.
Name me say again.
Porsche, Lamborghini,
Porsche.
whatever.
They're like a Porsche that goes screeching past your Ford Fiesta, and you still meet them at the traffic lights because they haven't got any further forward, and you pull up alongside them, and you've got a Europa League trophy in your arm, and that Porsche is sitting there. He's just listening to me. He's got nothing. Because that's the bottom line.
Let me just now.
Arsenal are a fantastic club with a terrific manager and a fantastic squad, but they end the season in frustration. Tottenham have had an ordinary season, an average season even, but they've ended it with a trophy and real optimism that next season is going to be even better. And
so our Leeds better.
They are both going to be playing in the same tournament. So you can criticize, and you can say, well, Arsenal have got much better a chance of going further. You've seen with the new revamp phase that even some of the lesser teams are able to do better in that league stage and go further than people expect. Look at teams like Brest that actually impressed a lot of people, even though you would not have given them a chance at the start of the season.
We're comparing apples and oranges here,
I just
Darren.
think that you're being really, really unfair and disrespectful to Spurs, and you're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth.
No, I'm not. Myself and you, we got a wrap because Troy's got to go.
You are saying that the Spurs is equivalent of non-league or amateur.
No, I'm making the point. There are levels. Arsenal are losing at a higher level.
Yeah, but
Spurs
they're losing.
are winning at a lower level.
And they're in the same competition next season.
Well, then let's chat then. But now, don't tell me Spurs are good.
So who'd you rather? So you'd rather be
All right, so
Spurs
hang on.
the
So
reason
hang
why
on,
Arsenal fans are frustrated
Darren. So
is
Darren,
because they can't.
Darren,
No,
Darren,
you hold on
Darren.
now.
Our
The
lead's better
reason
than
why
Arsenal.
Arsenal
Our
fans
lead's
are
better than
frustrated
Arsenal.
is because they
Our
do not
lead's
have a
better than
trophy
Arsenal.
for all the money
Our
they
Leeds
have
United
spent so
better
far
than
this season.
Arsenal.
Don't bring up straw man arguments
I'm
about
not. I'm
Leeds.
using your
The
argument.
bottom line is that the purpose of football is to win silverware. Spurs are doing that. Don't disrespect them
Are Spurs
because
good?
you are not doing that
Are
at the
Spurs
moment.
good? Simple. Are
No,
Spurs
no.
good?
Again, that's another one of your straw man arguments.
No, are Spurs
Spurs
good?
have won
Simple.
silverware. You have spent a fortune and you haven't. You've won your FA Cup.
It makes
that
no
was
sense,
years ago
Darren.
now. This is a new revamped side,
You're
and
comparing
you
apples
have
and
not
oranges.
Yeah, but
won
if Arsenal were in the
silverware.
Europa League,
so
they
you
would have.
cannot turn around
If Arsenal were in
and
the Europa League, they
disrespect
would have
that
won
Europa
silverware,
League
wouldn't they?
win.
You can't.
Yes, I
can't
can.
say.
And
You can't
but.
say
I watched
that,
the whole
though.
tournament.
And but.
You
I watched the whole
Arsenal
tournament.
do not have
Troy!
silverware.
Troy!
I watched the whole
Spurs do.
thing.
Listen,
You get
listen,
destroyed,
listen.
and so
We're
will Man
actually-
United.
We're actually. Listen,
doing
let me
here?
tell.
You're
Yeah,
bringing up
exactly. What are we
hypotheticals.
doing here?
Let me ask
What
you,
are
Troy.
we
Let
doing
me
here?
ask you, Troy. Does this Arsenal team this season
Oh, come
not
on
win the
now.
Europa League?
Not come on. I don't know. The thing is, you lot are going, they're definitely going to win it. I don't know. You don't know what team he's going to put out in Europa League. You don't know whether he cares about the longevity of the Europa League. You don't know if he's going for the title or if he's going for the Europa League. But look, like, come on now. What
All right.
are we doing? Because
All right.
we're talking, would they? I don't know.
Okay.
Football is such a game that in 90 minutes of football, you don't know.
We got a wrap. So I promise you that you'll be out of here by
Let him
10.
go.
There's
I'll
so much more
stay.
to
Let him
discuss.
go. I'll
There's
stay.
so many more.
See you later, Troy. Congratulations.
I'm happy to go. I'm happy to
No,
go.
we've got a
I'm
trophy
happy to
winner
go.
in the room this year.
Can't
Come
be
on.
funny.
Oh, well, Darren as well. Sorry. 2 trophy winners. Jordan, we got to lick our wounds.
What makes me laugh?
We'll
What makes
continue
me
this.
laugh? What makes me laugh? Actually, is that you're burning.
I'm not.
You're burning.
I'm not.
Full stop.
I'm not.
You're burning.
Troy,
you're burning.
last night-
No. This is not connected to you, Jordan. Jordan, this is not
I'm
connected
happy
to
for
you.
Tottenham.
Sorry.
You're
I'm
burning
happy for
here.
Tottenham.
You're burning.
I'm not.
You're burning. It's
Are you talking to me or
an
you?
issue
Talking
that
to
you
me or
can't
you?
say.
Troy,
I'm
me or
talking
you?
to you. I'm talking to you.
Oh, sorry.
That you can't say that you won last night. So if you won last night, you'd be as giddy
No, I
as
wouldn't.
anything.
No, I
And I
wouldn't.
don't accept the fact.
No,
you
no,
said,
no,
"Oh,
no.
it's
Do you know
not
Hugh?
about
No, I
Do you
wouldn't.
know
No, I
Hugh?
wouldn't.
Do you know
Huh?
Hugh, Troy?
No, I
Do you know
wouldn't.
Hugh?
No, they'll be giddy
No, I
about
wouldn't. No, I
winning
wouldn't.
the
No,
tournament,
I wouldn't.
but would still be very critical of and the way
I wouldn't.
you criticise is far
I
too
wouldn't.
much, by the way. But it'd be very critical
Hang
of
on.
where Man United are.
On that
And as for
bombshell-
you, and as
on
for
that-
you, and as for you, right, with your little like mentality, I love Arsenal. I'm not even going to say that Arsenal are not the second best team in the league again.
I'll show you the messages.
Right? But
All right,
sometimes you just have to hold
To my
it.
Tottenham mates last
Sometimes you
night.
just
To
have
my
hold it.
Tottenham friends last night. What does it
All
say?
right, so why did
I'm
you
gonna
didn't
read it
text me?
out.
That.
Okay.
You didn't
Good luck.
text me.
Good
that.
luck.
Good luck. Anyway,
You didn't
we
text
got
me
a
for
wrap.
that.
We got
Anyway,
a wrap.
I've
We
got
got
to
a
go.
wrap. We
I've
got a
got
wrap.
to
We got a wrap. Listen, leave your comments in the comments below.
It's been
Let us know
enjoyable.
Will Amorim be there next season? Just talk to us here on Whisper It Loudly.
No, we want the Spurs
Subscribe.
fans to talk about where they were last night when they enjoyed the victory.
Let us
That's
know.
what we want.
Just talk
Yeah?
to us.
Let us know.
Until next week, we're out of here. Peace.